The Mt Panorama scenic road near Bathurst was completed in the 1930s and soon after became a famous racing circuit on certain days. Its popularity as such gained momentum, and by the 1970s, when Australians were building powerful cars of their own, Mt Panorama became a mecca for racing enthusiasts. It is by world standards unique and recognised as an extraordinarily difficult racetrack. The track has changed over the years, with luxury accommodation on site, but some things haven't changed. The circuit is a tough one.
Mt Panorama Bathurst. This is one of the few remaining truly great road racing circuits in the world. Put simply, this place is a driver favourite, and come 10:30 race day morning, this stretch of road is set to erupt. It all started back here in about 1938 as a scenic drive, and whether you turn up for the first time either as a tourist or a race driver and you take a trawl around for 60 kilometres an hour, the legal speed limit in your road car, it never fails to attract anything less than, wow, I can't believe what I'm seeing. Because this place is narrow, it's fast, it's concrete lined, there's no room for error, there's massive elevation changes, it's a track like absolutely no other. 170 odd kilometres an hour is the average lap speed. It's 6,200 metres of racetrack, 23 corners, depending on how you count them. And when you roar through turn one and head up Mountain Straight for the first time, grabbing gears to fifth, you reach 265 kilometres an hour. And it's at that point you realise this is not your average racetrack.
So after the run through turn two, you start a 200 km/h run up into a blind corner here, which brings us into the cutting. Now, this is one of the slowest corners on the track, but let me tell you, this is where Mt Panorama starts to get really serious. At the slowest point, this is the national speed limit here, about 100 km/h. You need to run the car right up hard against the wall and get really early throttle. Very, very important. You need to run the car wide, but not too wide, because you need to keep the car square, because just over the horizon there's that awful bump, and it is so, so hard to get over that flat, and particularly difficult on used rubber. There's 2 or 3 pieces of track in Australia that I think are really ballsy, and let me tell you, this is one of them. This 200 metres of track here is about as tough as it gets because of this bloody grate. We talk about this grate a lot, and why it's like a roller coaster ride down here. The car gets so heavily loaded that in fact the tyre compresses up and pushes itself into the roll cage in underneath the mudguard there. What that does, as you're steering, it overloads the power steering and tries to reef the wheel out of your hands. Remember, at that point you're doing 190 k's an hour and only millimetres from the wall.
This is the famous McPhillamy Park, right at the peak of the mountain. You roar into here, 4th gear, about 205 kilometres an hour. Just to add a bit of spice, there's this giant lump in the road. It doesn't look so big when you're walking along here, but believe me, at speed you really notice it. At this point, the car rocks up onto 2 wheels, fires across the top of the mountain. Not that it bears thinking about, but on the left-hand side, on the other side of the concrete wall, there's a massive drop-off. Up at the peak of the hill, skyline. And if you didn't have the data to prove it in cold, hard facts, you wouldn't believe that the car's doing 210 kilometres an hour just prior to the driver putting his foot on the brake pedal. But the real story here is the wriggling that comes after, because you've got to make a transition down through these very fast S's and get back 2 gears, so that by the time you get down to the dipper, you're in 2nd gear and the target speed's about 80 kilometres an hour. Another big story this weekend, a big safety improvement at Mt Panorama. Gone is the big gravel trap. It's now sealed, so when you run off, you can rejoin down here safely. This is the dipper, and it's just an amazing piece of racetrack. As I said before up the top, by the time you get down in here, the car's in 2nd gear and doing just 80 k's. But it leaps up onto 2 wheels quite violently, and you've got to be very careful because you're grip limited on the right-hand side. Have to be so careful not to steer into this concrete wall that you can see down on the right. At the same time, you're juggling the gear lever, searching for 3rd gear, driving through the gutter, and then firing off down towards Forest Elbow, and amazingly back to 175 k's.
Conrod Straight. This is the most iconic piece of roadway in the country. Over 1 kilometre long and 300 km/h. Not just the straight, but you turn the car at 300 kilometres an hour. And you put your foot on the brake pedal there for about 4.5 seconds, as hard as you can push it. And then you've got to do it all again 500 metres later at Hell Corner.
Actually, that's a pretty big experience for anyone that's never driven on this track, because it's so, I suppose, exhilarating in one word, but very frightening in another, because there's so much concrete over top of so many blind corners. But and it's very challenging, and to get speed around here is more about experience of doing laps here.
As much as one can look at it on television and describe it and look at descriptions of way to drive around it, you actually can't still comprehend the steepness.
And so it was 13 containers with 26 muscle cars and all the equipment were shipped over from New Zealand to Australia. Let's have a look at them. Of course, most of the preparations had already been completed in New Zealand, but there were still some little but very important jobs to complete. For example, the petrol cap in Cam's Ford XA needed a new gasket to make it safer. The rest of the day was spent preparing the XA, warming up the engine and making sure nothing had been overlooked.
Thank you, sir. What'd you do, boss?
In the meantime, the crowd was building at Mt Panorama, and this was a special year, paying tribute to the late Peter Brock, a star on Australia's motor racing scene. At the end of the day, Cam, Crawford and crew went to the Bathurst Harness Racing Club caravan park where their motorhomes were set up. This was the day to begin practice laps and timing. The excitement was in the air. While Cam psyched himself up to drive his car, his crew once again went right over it to make sure it was ready for its Mt Panorama debut. Then it was time to move out of the pits, into the marshalling yard, and then out onto the track. And Cam soon provided the thrill of the day for the crowd. His wheels went onto the grass, he lost control and skated towards the wall and touched it. It was an unnerving experience, but it produced a Bathurst miracle of sorts. Even though the car kissed the wall, the damage was almost invisible. The top paint layer slightly scuffed, but the undercoat and metal beneath completely undamaged. Unbelievable. During the second practice session, Cam kept off the grass and was beginning to get the hang of it on the Mt Panorama circuit. Then, getting ready for practice session number 3, the weather suddenly changed. On a very cold Bathurst morning, the fog rolled in and refused to move. The cars went out on the track hoping it would lift soon. Eventually time ran out and this practice session was lost. The muscle car drivers may have been disappointed, but that didn't affect the crowd, which had swollen to record numbers. Helicopter scenic flights were flat out, and there was plenty of entertainment beside the track to keep the crowd amused. The next event was the first of 3 races.
50 cars here in Touring Car Masters.
Hey, matey, a great end to a great day on the mountain. I think the New Zealand Central Muscle Cars came over and played 26 cars from both the North and South Island of New Zealand joining us. But at the front, some familiar names at Mt Panorama, John Bowe and Glenn Seaton. Now, we should recap. Qualifying was abandoned this morning due to the fog that came down over the mountain. This grid is based on practice times from yesterday. There are some of the New Zealanders whose sum total of experience at Mt Panorama, 7 laps.
That's all you need.
Why not? Just into it green?
Came
Why
from
not?
2 experts like us up here. Yeah, it was very foggy here this morning, so we got some faster guys mixed up with the Central Muscle Cars that have been brought over for a bit of Anzac spirit this weekend at Mt Panorama. Some guys towards the back there. Darren Bill, one of our locals here, starting well down the pack, and Jim Richards starting even further down the field than he'd like to do.
And right at the very tail of the field, a guy who's had podium finishes here the last 2 years that Touring Car Masters has visited the mountain, Eddie Abelnika, missed both practice sessions with a case of the shingles, I'm told. So he drove up from Melbourne last night. He will start that car from the back of the grid. Unfortunately, couldn't qualify this morning. So this is his first run at Mt Panorama all weekend long.
It was a whole lot of fun here a couple of years ago at Bathurst, and it sets to kick off after this, which I'm really looking forward to. Over 50 cars coming down and rolling starts, Richard Crail. I love that at every circuit we go to, but none more so than here at Mt Panorama. Some famous surnames on the front row, Bowe and Seaton, as he pointed out, set on the practice times from yesterday. The field continues to sweep through the Woodstock Chase. I've been looking forward to this for the better part of a fortnight now, as the green flag gets set to wave. Watch the guys at the front, but some faster guys at the back, as the green flag waves here at Mt Panorama, underway for race number 1 of the Touring Car Masters.
Great start, Brett Youlden on the second row, and Adam Bressington with a lock-up in the Chevy Camaro outside of the second row. That's Stephen Johnson, the white GTHO Falcon, going up the inside. Race winner here 12 months ago. Good start from him. Everyone, touch wood, through turn 1, A-OK. And you can see in that mix the XD Falcon of Dean Perkins. He's been the leading guy for Central Muscle Cars all weekend. Great start, Dean Perkins, leading Kiwi driver. He's 9th. It's car number 175, the bright red XD Falcon. So started this one, cusp of the top 15. He's made up plenty of ground. You can see him back a shot as Scarwood goes down the inside of Bressington and grabs P6 away from the Chevy Camaro driver. Jim Richards in the mighty AMC Javelin looking to do the same.
And Karen Filosky Midgley is next from the Central Muscle Cars Brigade. Go back to Cam Tilley aboard the Pacer, then Hopper, Mercer, Freestone. Back to Bruce Anderson and Tony Hunter back behind the wheel of the little Chevy Monza.
It'll be really tough for the guys that have never seen this place before. There's been 8 Touring Car Masters rounds held alongside the Super Cheap Auto Bathurst 1000. 4 of them have been won by guys that have won the great race. 6 of those rounds have been won by guys with Bathurst 1000 starts. So, like we say so often here, experience means so much. So, the job that these guys are doing, the Kiwis who have never been here, and even some of the Aussie guys like Adam Garwood, who's now looking down the inside of Mark King at turn one, and had to back out of that at the last minute, because otherwise there would have been a Capri parked in the door of a Camaro at Hell Corner. Spare a thought for those guys. They're doing a terrific job getting up to speed at this place.
So we go back to the battle at the front between Bow and now Seaton, closer than ever. He's taking Stephen Johnson doing double duties along with this category and the Toyota 86 Series.
Bow, Seaton, Johnson at the front of the field. This is a good fight. Mark King in front of his teammate Adam Bracington and Jim Richards in the mix. We're talking about experience, getting towards the front of the field.
Bow straight on the defensive because he knows he hasn't got the legs here. Had to protect the line coming out as we look at Stephen Johnson, the big, massive, long gear lever for this Falcon. Let's have a listen to it as it heads down Conrod. We're looking down the field, so Seaton goes to the lead. So they come up to some of the central muscle cars now. We expected this a little bit earlier, and this is the reason why. Watch this coming out. Oh, he's held up by traffic, and that's allowed Seaton, who had stronger legs. He got balked heading up Mountain Straight, and Seaton took the lead.
Bit of a friendly fire from a fellow Tirana driver there, Nolte. That's unfortunate for JB. Nothing he could do. The Tirana was doing the right thing, trying to get out of the way. JB zigged when he should have zagged, and Glenn Seaton was ever the opportunist and cruised on past and grabbed the lead in the Mustang. When they've got the same helmet, the same eyes, and there's drama. Dr. John Elliott, one of the key protagonists from the Central Muscle Cars who helped bring the series over here, just tagged into a spin, and Keith Kasulki takes evasive action. So too, Cameron Tilley. And are they going to get away with this? Oh, they are.
That was unbelievable right there. Tilley, there was no brakes left, and Dr. John Elliott would have just been. I can't even say it. This Richie is going to just explode right in front of the camera here. And there it goes. Dumping a ton of oil behind the back of the Tirana. But by then the damage was done, and this is Garwood.
Oh, no,
so on his own.
He was trying to pass Stevie J on the outside. So he just went in a little bit too deep and locked the rears. No oil, the problem there.
It's a crease in the back of Dad's car. I'm sure he'll be waiting for a conversation back in the pits at the end of this. Glenn Seaton aboard the number 30 Mustang picks up his second win in the Touring Car Masters here at Mt Panorama by just over a second to John Bow. Stephen Johnson will fill the third position, and I bet we'll see a smile through the open face helmet of Glenn Seaton. Fantastic job.
Really impressive performance. Yulden holds out King, Bressington and Richards.
Race number one of the Touring Car Masters. We've got two big races still to come this weekend at Mt Panorama. 1.3 seconds was the margin first to second. Seaton from Bow, Johnson, Yulden, King, Bressington. Jim Richards was seventh, then Perkins, Gomersall and John Midgley completing the top 10.
So Adam Garwood, great drive in the Capri. Unfortunate moment on the final lap, but holds his head high. Tony Karanfilowski next. David Hopper, one of the Kiwis, going very nicely. Paul Clark as well. Tony Hunter in the Chevy Monza for 23rd, with Leo Tobin in his Mustang in 26th place.
So Abel Nico, nearly 19 spots, nearly 20 spots up in that race alone. Brendan Mason down there, Andrew Turner, Wayne Mercer stopped on the final lap, and a couple of retirees in that race, including Tony Barrow. Coming up Mountain Straight, and dramas here for the Tirana. I believe that's the one that was caught up in the lapping saga yesterday, if you will.
Bit of drama with that, with John Bower trying to take evasive action, and Glenn Seaton was able to work his way through. So this race with a full reverse grid, there'll be some different names at the pointy end of the field.
Going to see that very, very soon here as the cars are on the formation lap, the warm-up lap, ready for race number 2 of this year's event here at Mt Panorama.
Terrific race yesterday, won by Glenn Seaton. Second win of the season for the Thunder Road Racing Team Ford Mustang, and Cito's second in TCM at Mt Panorama as well. But this reverses the top half of the field, which means there's some new names at the front. 26 cars over from New Zealand this weekend, Matt Nolte, and a bunch of them at the pointy end of the grid in this one, led by Colin Meadows in his Camaro, Paul Clark alongside him. Big grid, 49 cars to take the starter in this one.
Take a deep breath, because there's a lot of cars to go through in these rows of 2 for the Touring Car Masters. Leo Tobin didn't have a great run yesterday. He'll start at the pointy end of the field here. Greg Holden is in the field. Jim Richards will start deep in the pack here again in the Shannon's Insurance entry alongside Cuddy Cuddens.
There's 1,500 cubic inches in the first two rows of the grid. It's pretty impressive. Some of those big central muscle cars, over 400 cubic inches. A little bit further back, Dr. John Elliott in his XU1 Tirana. Now you'll see some familiar names from the Touring Car Masters side of things. Guys like Cameron Tilley and the Valiant Pacer. And then from the last three rows of the grid, Stephen Johnson, Adam Bressington, Brett Yordan, Glenn Seaton, John Bowe, and right from the very back, Eddie Abel-Nika.
So we get set with some guys that were buried down the pack in the middle of the field. Yesterday's race get a chance to dance on the big stage here. So we get set on Super Saturday. Hope you're enjoying all the action here, wherever you're watching around the country, as the green flag is set to come out in race number 2 of the Touring Car Masters here at Mt Panorama.
Great start, Colin Meadows running that Chaparral tribute livery on his Camaro. Paul Clark around the outside, a little bit of contact further back. Some of the Kiwi Central Muscle Car runners just rubbing a little bit of paint, but so far so good through turn 1. Every driver was sat down before the start of this race. Big drivers briefing. Everyone told just to have a cool head on the opening lap of the race especially.
So they climb 3 wide, 2 wide. Some try for 4 wide. Doesn't work here on Mountain Straight. We climb the top. Junior Johnson clawing his way through the field already. That's Keith Kasulki ahead in the HQ Monaro. They climb up to tyre power cutting.
Started 4th last. He's already 32nd. Stephen Johnson at the first split running up the hill. So down the hill they go, really busy, but everyone keeping cool heads so far.
And here come the guys from the back of the field here. It's led by Clark at the moment. The Kiwis 1, 2 and 3.
2 starts in the Super Cheap Auto Bathurst 1000. Oh, wow. Lock the rears down into turn 1. Remember, started 6th from last.
17 positions, the young man from Tasmania has made. I'm sure they're having a nice big party down there in Launceston today watching the young fella go at it. This is Bruce Anderson, stretching the legs down Conrod Straight.
John Bowe up to 34th in 2 and a bit laps, so good progress for the SLR 5000 Tirana.
Got Wayne Mercer behind, Eddie Abel-Nika back behind the wheel of car 48. He was feeling a bit sick on Thursday in practice, and legendary racer Kim Jane had a steer of that car, but now starting to slice his way up. He's up to 31st position now.
Saw Cam Crawford in his XA Falcon take the shortcut at the chase.
There's our leaders heading up towards the top of Blundstone Bend here as we work lap 3 of the Touring Car Masters here at Bathurst.
With Eddie Abel-Nika, the Melbourne's cheapest cars, XB Coupe, up here at Griffin's Bend. So Eddie went down the inside, the lightest of contact between the two, that unloaded Wayne Mercer, who ran out of fuel in yesterday's race. He was a lap short. He said to me, I did a Win Cup and I was so close within sight of the line. Really unfortunate for those two guys. They continue on out in front.
What's been the feedback from the Kiwi drivers? They really enjoyed it. I'm sure they have.
Yeah, eyes like dinner plates, Matt, wide open, trying to work this place out. Bear in mind, coming into race 1 yesterday, some of them only had 7 or 8 laps in total experience to their knowledge bank at this place. So they're all doing a tremendous job and thoroughly enjoying it.
Down to the chase for the final time. We inverted the grid on the results of yesterday based on the Australian. Oh, he's had a moment here coming out of the chase. It should be enough. He's got a car up ahead there that might go a lap down here. Nonetheless, these two have been the class act of race number 2.
This will be close, Matt.
It's going to be, because that Tirana is going to hold him up. It's not the same one as yesterday, I hope. Nonetheless, Colin Meadows will take the win in race number 2 of the Touring Car Masters, just over half a second in the end. 1:30, just having a moment here. I think he went a bit further up the track than he was planning to. That's halfway up Mountain Straight. That's a unique way they do it here at Bathurst. They send him off into the campgrounds at halfway up Mountain Straight here. He won an extra scenic lap.
The commentators were wrong. Cam had been black flagged off the track because he was driving without his window safety netting in place. It should have looked like this. At the end of this day, Touring Car Masters handed out mementos to all the drivers taking part. Libby Crawford accepted on behalf of the Crawford crew, and this was followed by a spectacular RAAF Hornet fly past.
Race 1, we won. Race 2 was a reverse grid. Actually had a little bit of a out of balance tyre, but for race 3, we're down one side's Australians, down the other side's the Kiwis, so it's going to be competitions on.
Oh yes, you'll start from pole position for this one here today. The number 30 Ford Mustang as they head across the top of this mountain on a magnificent Sunday morning here at Bathurst.
And Dean Perkins will start alongside him with a Roush Yates NASCAR engine under the bonnet of his XD Ford Falcon. So the run towards turn 1 and especially up Mountain Straight, those central muscle cars have got so much torque, the bottom end power you need to drag yourself up the hill. And it's Glenn Seaton on pole position for Australia. Dean Perkins, the reigning champion from the central muscle cars, starts from the outside of the front row. John Bowe next from row 2. Watch out for him, but there's some big names filtered throughout this field with fast cars that might be further back than they would expect to be, given the way this grid has been generated, which is from the race 1 results on Friday.
I liked yesterday's grid. We reversed the field at the halfway mark. Some guys in the middle didn't expect to be up the front, and I thought yesterday Colin Meadows did a great job to pick up the race win there. They got a big margin over the field too.
Yeah, really good battle at the front of the field yesterday between the Kiwis, giving them an opportunity to lead at Mt Panorama. They thoroughly enjoyed that. But this is what the weekend has been building to. The Wilson Group getting behind this Trans-Tasman Endurance Race. There's a really nice petrol trophy that's been put together for this race. Hopefully it becomes an annual thing. That's not a starring performance for a Ford Mustang that ran at the front of the field yesterday.
And it's coming to a stop here. We may have to abort this start, maybe, and that's not meant to be doing that.
So hopefully Paul can get this car out of harm's way up the chase and we can get this race started.
Leading us down to Murray's Corner. We had upwards of 50 cars contest at the start of the weekend. We had a little bit of attrition, but that comes with the course.
Glenn Seaton, 302 Ford V8 against a big 358 cubic inch NASCAR engine in the XD Falcon. It'll be an interesting drag race. We agreed the Wilson Trans-Tasman Challenge.
It doesn't get much more better than that from the start. They were glued to each other. Cars spinning in the background, a long way off the circuit, and that's Bruce Anderson.
So he's just up behind the US Army Camaro. Kept it out of the wall. Car stalled. Get it refired and drive on. On for the lead. Seaton under pressure. Dean Perkins going around the outside in the Falcon. But the Bathurst veteran will hold on. That's John Bowe in third in the Wilson Tirana. Busy behind. There's Stevie J in the GTHO Falcon. And Paul, unfortunately, the number 49 Ford Mustang, who was such a good performer yesterday, missed the win by half a tenth of a second. Unfortunately, non-starter in this one. Great start by John Mitchell, the Kiwi in the second of the XD Falcons. He's one of the younger guys from the Central Muscle Car Brigade, but he's caught in that sandwich between Dean Perkins and John Bowe in front. That'll be a great story he'll be able to take back to New Zealand. I passed John Bowe on the opening lap at Bathurst.
Bressington is next aboard the Bob Middleton entry that Andrew Miedeke drove for the past couple of seasons, and Mark King. Brett Yilden is back in the field. They sweep down the mountain towards Forest Elbow here on lap 2.
Bressington charged from 38th to 7th yesterday, and I spoke to him this morning, Matt. He said, I had a plan at the start of the race just to take it really early, and really easy and conservative, and then I got halfway through and I went...
Being squeezed by Jason Gomersall in that beautifully prepared iSeek two-door Tirana. But these two Falcons, Richie, are going to stack the field up here already. We've got another 5 or 6 cars joining the queue.
So David Hopper and Jason Gomersall having a great... Johnson, Bowe, Perkins, second through fourth, and Glenn Seaton now 5.6 seconds out in front.
Under trouble down here as they come out of the Forest Elbow region and work our way down Conrod Straight here on lap number 4.
First line ahead of Bressington, Johnson,
Glenn Seaton 6 seconds out in front now. This one shot to pieces. The battle on for second through 5th place. We saw young John Mitchell off the road at turn 1 last time around. Got out in the gravel track, belted the wall. He's continued on, but it's changed the order at the front of the field. He was fighting with Perkins for second and third place, but he's dropped back through the order. Camaro.
Oh, this is cool.
The Chevy's a bit better in a straight line in the top end and clears him again and they're running for the chase.
2 passes in 1 straight. I like it. Bressington up to 3rd spot now. Johnson behind this group in 5th. But Glenn Seaton, hasn't he been strong this weekend? We've seen him in the Toyota 86 Racing Series with his son Aaron, and it's going to be a convincing winner in the final race here today at Mt Panorama by 2.5 seconds to John Bow.
3 races, no yellow flags or safety cars. And there's the order. Seaton, Bow and Bressington the top 3 with Dean Perkins in 4th.
Nice. The guys behind them including Johnson, Mark King, Greg Garwood and Brett Yilden. Jim Richards got up to 11th. Colin Meadows, who won yesterday, was 13th. Keith Kasulki down to Eddie Abelnika and Tristan Tecchi inside the top 20. A lot of cars here this weekend.
Rusty French, 22nd. Tony Hunter in the amazing Chevy Monza, 24th. Down to Leo Tobin in 28th. Our Belgian, he ran at the front of the field in the reverse grid affair yesterday, 31st in the Mercury Comet. Terrific stuff on the mountain, Matt Nolte. Great show for the Wilson Trans Tasman Challenge.
Do you think this is worthy of being a regular event?
I think there's no doubt about that because that's what we'd love to see in our class, TCM, and also have you guys to come over, Kiwis to come over, to make this sort of a rivalry between, a bit like Bathurst has been built on, the Ford-Holden rivalry. We'd like to build this sort of thing on the rivalry between New Zealand and Australia, which is really, really good, and I think it would be a very successful thing to do every year, and hopefully we can do it in the future.
But there are a lot of naysayers before we came about the chances that us getting any significant laps achieved on the basis that we'd be red flagged everywhere and that we'd spend half our lives driving into walls, fences, etc. And actually, I always had enormous confidence in the abilities of all the drivers in Central Muscle Cars. The interest in our cars has been wonderful, and the fact that there have been no red flags or significant driving incidents over all of the practice and the racing for the weekend is an enormous credit to both all of those involved from TCM and CMC. So if you said what would one do differently again, I can't think of a single thing. The thing that really astounded me is the incredible knowledge that the crowd had of our cars, and they are all iconic Australian cars. And I guess one of the slight ironies given our rule structure is that we have rather more Australian cars in our category than TCM do. They run a different arrangement, so all the early Commodores, VKs, etc., and earlier, and the Falcon XEs, XDs, they don't have in their series yet. So I think a lot of the Australians were very impressed to see the range of Australian cars that we had, and I'd have to say the 26 cars that we brought over were absolutely immaculate, and that was recognised by not only the TCM but all of the crowd with their enormous knowledge of our cars, and they were very pleased to see them.
Well, as a proud father, my son, I watched him fulfil his dream. And he, like you, he didn't expect to win. He just wanted to take part and had a real ball doing so.
Absolutely, and I mean, I think that was the attitude we all came with. It was something really quite special. We drove appropriately, and actually the whole field got significantly faster and faster, and I think some of the Australians, particularly some of the extremely well-known professional Australian drivers from the past who we have so much regard for, have been very complimentary about the way we've driven and our increasing speed over the weekend.
Cam Crawford was one of those. From his first drive on Mt Panorama to the last, he cut 15 seconds off his lap times. He fulfilled a dream, he raced at Bathurst, did not hurt himself or his muscle car, and made new friends. And as the team packed the XA into the container for its journey home to New Zealand, they all agreed it was a wonderful and unforgettable experience.